Welcome everyone. So welcome back to our new episode in the webinar series. This time is a fireside chat, and we are really happy to have a very dear and super interesting guest with us, Jakob Bloch. Many of you know him personally and have maybe worked with him in the past, so he needs no introduction. To me, he's the #1 headhunter in energy trading, and in that role, he's incredibly well connected to the leaders in our industry. And yeah, we thought it maybe a good idea to benefit from these connections, get some insight on what's going on right now. Jakob, welcome to have you. Very happy to have you here on the webinar.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, a while back, I think a few days just, we were having a chat about what's going on in the new trading floors at home office. What kind of changes we see, what kind of challenges have been dealt with. And while we from Enmacc, we have maybe a perspective on the technical side of these challenges. So we helped a lot of customers setting up workflows digitally, enable them to trade on our platform, or setting up new APIs to automate many of the manual steps involved. This was demanding for us and gave us as well some insight in what's going on many of our customers' trading floors. But you added this people touch, the human side of the business to the conversation, and I thought this is really interesting, and we shall share that with a broader audience. And this is why we have this chat today. So again, great to have you, and I'm really looking forward to go into discussion with you, share a little bit what's going on, and invite all the other participants as well to participate through the Q&A functionality you have on Zoom. So you find it on the bottom. Please let us know your questions, what you find interesting, what you want to discuss. We'll try to pick it up in the conversation or go at the end back to some of the questions and topics we may have not touched upon. All right. What are the key takeaways for risk management and trading? Jakob, what can you share from your conversations, most recent conversations with leaders in the industry?
Okay. First of all, thank you for hosting it. Thank you for offering the platform, Jens. Anyone with an interest in discussing the human aspects of commodity trading, I'm all in. I enjoy discussing the cultures and the nuances around the cultures and how individuals collaborate, in particular in these times. So yeah, thank you for taking the initiative. You came to me a couple of weeks ago with a series of questions. Some were technical, some were a bit softer, and I took them, as you alluded to a number of my market contacts. So I've isolated where I think there are some interesting stories and some interesting takeaways. So for those of you who have kindly lent me their time over the last 2 weeks and are finding that some of the content they've shared are not making it onto to this discussion, it's simply been a case that we felt that there was some content that was stronger to cover, and I'm sure, as Jens and I discussed just before we lit the fire, that we might just gather around another bonfire another time and talk about different aspects that may have come out, or indeed may come out of the Q&A here. So you asked me about risk taking and observations around risk taking. And the theme that I'm picking up is that there are the changes that are the changes in risk taking or risk deployment is rather more market led than working from home led. So I'm not, those that are in risk trading or management, this will come as no surprise to you that position sizing, higher volatility and lower liquidity are much more influential in how risk is deployed in these times, rather than traders fully teched up from home. If anything, traders from home are able to manage risk rather more dynamically than they are able to in the office. So consequently, are putting more risk on. Companies are more comfortable because risk is managed more dynamically, more attentively. So yeah, so that was one takeaway. So more risk rather than less. Obviously, the long-term models and strategies have taken some sizable hits, unless you work at Andoran Capital, where they seem to have been on a rather fortuitous side of the trade from the get-go. But unlike Andoran, my takeaway is that very few saw the consequences of Corona coming to the extent that it did. So that was really my takeaway in risk taking. If you have I have rather more interesting aspects around workflow and collaboration. So if we want to shift onto that, happy to.
Absolutely. I think at the end, it's about the personal connection and between risk managers and traders, but it's as well about the smart use of data. And this kind of collaboration aspect, I think, was at the center of the changes in the last week. So yeah, what do you have seen there? What kind of takeaways do you have around collaboration?
So I've sort of divided into the good, the bad, and the challenges, and maybe a few hints on what can leaders do in this mix. So the good, I guess, is the immediate availability. That there actually is some even closer contact between some members of the team. There is a tendency of rather more immediate responsiveness on messenger tools, less time spent chasing people on the trading floor. Yeah. The improvised trading desks, and the fact that video conference is now part of everyone's stable diet. They're seamless. They're the norm. Everyone has the kits. Nobody's got missing plugins. Nobody's got firewall issues. So that element works rather seamlessly. That's a good thing. The bad, I guess, is that it's highlighting how what's important in terms of the feel of an office. If your subject matter is, you want to talk about risk. If you want to talk about risk managers, helping safeguard the risk that's deployed in a trading room. So the feel of walking the trade floor, or maybe even sitting on the trade floor, or sitting right next to the trade floor, the osmosis of information that's flowing from just listening, or from just feeling, or knowing the traders that tend to swing the big bat, knowing just by what mood they're in, you can spot it. And I think risk managers are so accustomed to that's not a scorecard exercise. That's not something you derive from a spreadsheet or a system. It's a real feel. But you overlay that on top of the scorecard information that you get on where is everyone in their position. But that feel cannot be ignored. And so the merits of hearing what's going on, the merits of those water cooler moments, the room vibes, makes it very difficult for the supervisors of prop trading businesses to naturally communicate and naturally challenge teams and individuals without it seeming like a policing or an infringement. Whereas before it was done by just picking up the vibes. So that information flow obviously doesn't happen naturally, and nor is it actually able to replicate virtually without it being super contrived. Yeah. And so that's the good. The bad. Now let's talk about the challenge. Is for risk leaders to what they've got to do is figure out how can they allow their risk officers to be relevant in a virtual room. So here, I mean, a virtual room could be the traders will get together on a Zoom or a Teams or whatever the platform is, and they will shoot the breeze. They will exchange ideas, and they will feel that's a room for them. Historically, the risk manager, if not directly in the room, was kind of by the open door, so could kind of hear enough and get enough of a feel. But now he or she is not in the room at all. And some of the anecdotes that I have heard is that they've then inserted themselves into the virtual trading room and they've been bullied out of the room. And that in itself should be a red flag to any head of risk. Why are you bullying the risk officer out of the room? But I would also say that it's the responsibility of the head of risk to make sure that room is prepped, so it allows risk, or indeed any other function, whether it's compliance or risk or regs or whatever function that is important and is imperative to sit around the front office, needs to be in that room. But it's easier said than done, because those individuals can't necessarily fight those battles themselves. So the way that the leaders, I think, could make that process a lot simpler, and maybe some already have, is, I guess, it's their responsibility to set the scene. It's their responsibility to provide the context. It's their responsibility to explain the why we're doing it this way. Yes, risk can be perceived as a policing exercise, but actually a lot of organizations, it's an enabler rather than an enforcer. Yeah. So set the context accordingly, and get those individuals in the room for the right reasons. But it does need to be sold to the front office, because otherwise it will be seen as an unwelcome participant that is in just to curb the fun. So there is a challenge there, which I see as a leadership challenge. Now, another couple of things which, I mean, again, it's not rocket science, but obviously any organization that has a large operational element, large physical operational element, a 24-hour dispatch operation are immensely challenged, because it's tricky to reach people. So those parts, so operational, dispatch, physical trading, they are used to getting answers on simple and frequent questions by walking up to people. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how this virtualized way of speaking together is rather more agenda-led. But you've got some aspects of the business that doesn't lend itself that well to that. And 24-hour operational power dispatch is a good example of that. You've got a number of questions arising all the time, and the normal way of handling them is probably, I haven't worked in power ops myself, but my sense is that you'll run around and you will get the answers to your questions, and you'll get stuff done. I don't know, firefighting or problems are appearing rather more dynamically, and doesn't lend itself to let's diarize a meeting and here's the agenda. It's more around solving very short-term problems that are arising all the time. So then the two other observations which I think might interest you is one of my contacts actually put a split on it, and he said, I reckon we can do 80% of communication using this kit. So And then he said the remaining 20 will accept it's not going to happen. And having dug a little deeper into what makes up communication, I think, and I'll touch on this a bit later, I don't think the last 20% is even achievable because of the limitations of this, and because of how we interact as humans. So I'll touch on that a bit later because I think it's super interesting. But it's definitely a case of this is running at 80%, and that will not change. The final bit, which I think is also interesting, is another thing which won't change, and that is for those prop shops that are involved in cross-commodity trading. They are, if you're sitting and your bank of desks, you're trading energy, and the bank of desks behind you is trading metals, and you're used to getting that flow, that informal information flow, what you're overhearing, it is not something that lends itself to, unless you have endless amount of time in your day, to contrived meetings where you sit down and you talk about what's going on in metals and how can that have an influence on prices in energy. Again, that one is lost a bit in translation because there's enough critical stuff that needs to be shared within the energy group without you have enough time in the tank to say, oh, let's understand what's going on in grains. What's the coffee market doing today? Oh, base metals is doing X. I think that's another thing, is that historically some of the players that have done rather well out of getting that seamless flow of information across desks, they don't have that privilege right now. So that's another sort of takeaway. It may well be that there are firms that are achieving that, but the general theme is that ain't happening.
Definitely, I see it as well, these kind of limitations, which you cannot shift everything to digital. And we just got one interesting question in there, and I think maybe it helps us to summarize it a little bit. Drawing parallels to earlier crises, we have seen that in especially challenging markets with high volatility, the companies in these situations were willing to take even more risk, which may be a little bit counterintuitive in this environment right now with the limitations on control, what you just discussed. Do you see that? Would you say people are increasing their positions? Are they willing to take more risk, or is this too early to say?
No, absolutely. I think the market offers tremendous opportunities. You know, if you like price swings, if you like volatility, this is the time to be a trader. So if you're in an organization that will allow you to deploy risk, and you're saying, well, listen, I'm not even going to waste time commuting. I will sit here and I will babysit this risk and this position dynamically. Just give me the VAR. Give me a bigger bat to play with, because the opportunities are there. So yes, I think traders have interesting times. It's hard work, mind you, but I don't think there's any company who enjoys risk and enjoys managing risk who are not seeing opportunities in these times. Quite the contrary.
Yeah. To summarize a little bit the overall changes you see here now, what are the other takeaways, or what kind of actions have you seen companies taking proactively now?
I think inevitably there's a high increase in scheduled collegial times, even socials. And so everything is this increased tendency to define agendas clearer. And speaking from personal experience, I'm becoming much more disciplined at being on time. There's much more accuracy around the agenda. As we said, there are obviously no random people meetings. There are no, so with that said, there's no disruption to your day, if you like. Nobody will walk up to your desk and disrupt what you're doing. And it's easier to turn down a Skype call, Teams call, whatever, than it is to turn away a colleague that appears by your desk and wants to shoot the breeze. And so consequently, much better time management, much more efficiency around that. As I alluded to earlier, there's none of this, see you in the coffee room, no information flow, no informal chit chat, and all the good stuff that comes with that. No surprises there. I think it's probably worth talking about like places like Singapore. I've had the privilege of traveling all over the world as part of what I do here, and there are some clear differences in terms of what are the meeting cultures in different places. Singapore is one of those places where you can absolutely get away with having a meeting with zero agenda. The only agenda is that we're going to meet, we're going to probably both get some information out of this. Where there'll be other places on the planet where if you request a meeting, you will be asked, what's the agenda? Why are we meeting? So I think the current times is a super interesting if you overlay it on existing cultures. And I'm isolating Singapore because I have familiarity with what that business or what that region is like. And so many businesses have set up outposts in Singapore because of a recognition that you want to get that information that's flowing in the streets. Except now it's not flowing in the streets. Now it's flowing in the ether or not at all. Yeah. Because fundamentally, I believe people share different things when they meet, when they feel comfortable with somebody. Typically, that's linked to lots and lots of nuances around communication. All that's off the table. So there's a huge issue around what information flows and how are we navigating our businesses as a result. And in terms of other overall changes, different voices are heard. Different voices are heard inside organization. That has to be a good thing. Yeah. I have a huge interest in diversity hiring, and it's much broader than a gender specific issue, and it is around what voices are heard, what are the cultural makeup of your organization, and are the right voices heard in your organization. Now this levels the playing field. COVID is leveling the playing field in that respect. And that could be an interesting takeaway to hopefully take out of this. Yeah. Somebody mentioned to me that his diet has vastly improved. His compared to what he was eating off the canteen, it's European utilities shall remain nameless. But that's good. And then the other thing is that Zoom fatigue is a thing, and that did whet my appetite to dig a bit deeper as to what is that all about, and if you can stomach a bit of psychology from someone who is really not qualified to pass opinion on it, then stay with me, because it makes sense, and it relates to the 20% loss that I referred to earlier. That how we decode information as individuals, how we use body language, how we use eye contact. I think the last 20% there. That's why I said to you, we can't achieve it. So all that subconscious processing of information, but now doing it in 2D is by default limited. And a small, very tangible challenge there is that I'm looking at you on the screen. I'm not looking into my camera. That means we don't have eye contact. Yeah. It's close enough, but it's not there. So Then you have other issues which we can all relate to, whether it's Wi-Fi cutting out, or my son on Fortnite nicking the entire bandwidth, or lagging, and we all that can cause a havoc on a call. You know, we all know the experience of echoing, how off-putting that is when you suddenly when you get a slight delay, and it ruins the communication piece. And again, we just have to make do. So the challenge to interpret the non-verbal and subconscious signals that are a key part of the communication is completely off the table. And the fatigue comes in because when you're sitting spending a whole day and you've got these back-to-back meetings in this way, you're overcompensating your concentration to try and pick up those nuances, which makes you tired. Which means that sometimes I feel like I've got jet lag and it's 5:15, and I'm thinking, why the hell am I so tired? Because you're concentrating in a different way. So yeah, that's an interest. So going off piste a little bit, and something which I find super interesting, and yeah, we could be
I mean, I can totally relate to that as well. Being super concentrated the whole day, looking for these nuances in personal communication, yeah, takes its toll. It's very fatiguing over the whole day. I mean, what we see as well is that when you ask people a lot right now, everyone says, okay, productivity is rising even in this kind of environment. That's at least what you get as official feedback from people telling you how they work from home right now. And we have this in our organization. I've seen it as well on trading floors. What I'm asking myself sometimes is that just your own perception of being more productive right now in this environment, being as well responsible for yourself and delivering? Or is it really the reality? Most probably it's a mixed picture. I mean, let's cut to chase. There are losers and winners in this kind of environment. There are people who perform well in such a setup, others don't. How do you see that? Who are really the winners and the losers in this changed environment? And what does it take now to be successful in such a setup?
Absolutely, there are some clear differences, which really relates to personality makeups and relates to style of work. So let's talk about the winners. I think individuals that are already accustomed to project-based work are not struggling. Those that are already accustomed to work in a very structured fashion, the current mode of working is likely to be quite appealing for them. Those individuals may also find it easier to get heard because they communicate in a different way. And here I'm generalizing completely unfairly, but for the purpose of the kind of winners and losers discussion, it also, I think the current modus or the current state of play gives more room for introverts, and companies benefit from getting an increased contribution from those individuals. Those individuals tend to work harder. They work harder than they used to when they were in the office. And there is, on top of that, they experience no loss in efficiency, quite the contrary, because they work in a structured way, and they would tend to also focus on project by project. So the losers tend to be those that are, unsurprisingly, less organized, less structured in their approach to tasks. Those that require or feed off energy of others or from others, they're contributing. They're not just taking energy. And I think a comment that I hear time and time again, and people say, yeah, I can do it. It's just not very fun. And I relate to that. I think it's fun to work with people. I enjoy working with people.
Yes.
I don't get the same satisfaction. That's why I like to surround myself with colleagues. I don't want to be a one-man band. And I think it's so you do get, or some of us get a lot of energy from working with other people, and enjoyment and fun. And I think fun is super important as a driver. Those that are also losing are those that are relying on having a direct manager or direct coach close by. And they're used to that individual intervening frequently throughout the day. Let's call it dynamic intervention to make sure that you're doing your job. Because at the moment, they don't have that. And that means if you're accustomed to that and you suddenly don't have somebody who checks and balances on you all the time, and you get to the end of your whatever task, you hand it over, and most likely it's full of errors, because you're accustomed to having a bit more handholding, and that could be at any level in an organization. It's not necessarily juniors. So I've looked at the winners, I've looked at the losers, and then I've looked at what I think is the challenge again for the leaders. I've touched on the importance of facilitating room collaboration and pave the way for those who benefit from overhearing virtual meetings. So that was the analogy about the risk officer in the front office trade room. About explaining the context, about emphasizing that this is about collaboration. It's not policing. It's how we did things before Corona in our everyday offices. And we need to figure out how to virtualize that. If we are, I know there are glimmers of hope that there will be some changes and return to normality, but I still think this could have been a super relevant conversation maybe to have 5 weeks ago, but I still think it's relevant today. Particularly if we're going to talk about, takeaways. The other piece is that leaders need to ensure that colleagues know what other colleagues are working on, excited about, challenged about, ensuring that we're all pulling in the same direction still. But again, be super cognizant that time is a commodity, and you've got to keep it fresh. You've got to keep it dynamic. You've got to keep it short. And you want to get that in. But hey, put it on the leaders' table. That should be their gig. But I think it's important to mix it up. In this organization, we've been running with mornings and afternoon meetings and the occasional virtual drink. And I'm challenging it all the time. Is it the right content? Is it interesting enough? Do we need to mix it up? Because as humans, we like surprises. We like, the minute that something is too tried and tested, then you want to push the boat out in a different direction. Then the other bit is, boom, boom, boom. Let me see. Making this informal sharing of information virtualized, recognize that it can be super contrived, it can be time sucking. So try and test and feedback. Try, test, feedback, change. Okay, I think that's what you got to do, is that just keep working on it and accept that what works this week, we might tweak it next week. We might try and make it better. Try and get your colleagues excited about what you're doing. Working from home, in my book, has always required that the person working from home has to be double the colleague to those working in the office, because that person always has a tendency of feeling isolated, excluded, yada, yada, yada. And I was always saying, I was put it back on them and saying, you've got to be double the colleague if you're not in the room. Nobody's consciously cutting you out, but you've got to really throw your weight around even more if you're not in the room. Now we all need to throw that weight around even more because we have no room, or this is our room. This is our, this is our fireside. Yeah. So that's what, so everyone now needs to put in the extra yards and see it as a welcome challenge, because it's all about human dynamics, and we all enjoy this business because it's challenging. So this is a major challenge for all of us. Then let me say here, set clear agendas, tasks, structures, and expectations for those who struggle with self-imposed structuring and work discipline. So that's important if you are finding yourself being a manager of someone who is used to having your interventions dynamically throughout the day, holding your hand throughout the day. If you cannot, and you cannot do that at this particular point in time, as a leader, you must come up with a remedy. And I think here the remedy is really to be very clear with those individuals around agendas, tasks, structures, and expectations. And again, that's a leadership task. It could be something super simple like, what's your day ahead? What's your week ahead? What's your short, midterm plans, objectives? And it could be a recap at the end of the day, a recap at the end of the week. Start simple, and then you can start populating the good behavior. And ultimately, Jens, people who don't work hard in the office don't work hard at home.
That's right. You're totally right. And I have the feeling, look, that many of the traders, they are very well self-motivated and organized. I think they still get measured by the day. And for many of them, this kind of environment hasn't changed a lot. It's from my discussions I had, I get the feeling it's much harder for people as working as analysts or providing information to the organization. They have to show kind of a different level of organization, self-organization, and as well a way of communicating. This is changing, but traders themselves are, let's say, easy to manage in this kind of environment. Luckily, that's great. And we have the more you get away basically from the market-driven, let's say, activities, I think the more difficult it is to organize people, motivate them, and inform them properly in order to shoot for the same goal. Yeah.
I think the traders are judged by, in most cases, their revenue production, their P&L, and they don't need to be told what the objectives are.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Traders will ask for what they need, and they will know what's required for them. They know what good looks like.
Yes.
It's as you said, it's a number of the other functions that makes up an organization. It's a number of the functions around the trading that has a lot of these challenges.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it when we work together with areas of operations and IT as well. I mean, for them in the last weeks, it was about preparing for this homework environment, and I think they did a great job assuring this kind of good business continuity, because it was urgent. They were hurt. They got the resources, and they got it done. Now it's much more about shifting, about looking beyond the crisis. What's coming next? What is happening after the urgent things are delivered to the organization? What is important now going out of the crisis? And there we do see that customers, they either have not been discussing that internally, so they simply continue delivering on the roadmap, or they slowly start thinking about what is really urgent in this new kind of environment, realizing that they can't deliver on all the projects they have started. So it is more difficult developing new workflows, IT applications, integrating them. This is still a challenge for many companies right now, and was probably more difficult to manage actually than the trading floor itself.
Yeah, so I did table one or two questions around that, and yeah, the comeback was around some of the large-scale system implementations are unsurprisingly put on hold. But I'm also sure that in terms of I guess technology, I mean, Teams and Zoom aside, is a digitization and technology is a much wider issue. But just the collaboration, you know, needless to say, has come a long way in terms of rushing these platforms out, you know, in double quick time to allow organizations to operate in a different way. So, you know, that leaves a whole raft of challenges around, you know, digitization in a broader context, still on the table. But yes, clearly, the short-term objective of the companies that I have collaborated with is let's get functional, and let's look at what are what's important, what's urgent, and what's our quickest route to revenue.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of companies, you know, my own included, have really said, okay, listen, let's huddle up with our close partners, and look after each other. And a lot of the 35,000 feet kind of business planning have absolutely taken a back seat. And I would say for a number of companies, you know, the whole challenge around digitization and perhaps also data science, you know, have fallen into the backseat category. But you may have a different perspective on that. It would be interesting to hear what your clients are doing on that. Whether is their foot on the pedal or is their foot on the brake?
Look, I think digitization is a major topic for all of our clients right now, and as you rightfully said, mostly it was about collaborating in the last weeks. Yeah. I still see there a very positive effect, because many of the skeptics, this never works, we need to do it more the traditional way, yeah, these became silent now. So overall, the naysayers regarding digitization, you don't hear them anymore. I think they have lost the voice as well when it comes to decision making, and so you see many companies really speeding up things. Yeah. I think one major theme we see is that the personal time with each other, as you elaborated on, becomes more precious. And so let's not waste more time on manual data entries and all that stuff. It can be the trader, it can be middle or back office. All this kind of useless time we spend on dealing with these non-digital processes. This is where people feel more urged now to get rid of that and really focus on what drives value in collaborating, spending more time with each other, dedicating more time to the colleagues, and not wasting it on manual steps. That's clearly a theme we see. What we see clearly from our business where we can deliver on. I'm not saying we have the full perspective, but that's classically definitely one theme. And the other, I mean, there was a strong trend towards cloud services and basically off-the-shelf solutions. And I think many of the decisions people will do right now, or take right now in the next weeks, where it's more about make or buy, they have clearly a shift towards the buy side right now. Let's get proven solutions in there which don't need long and very intensive integration projects to get results fast. I think that the patience regarding delivering projects in IT over many years is getting less, even because we have seen what is possible in just a few weeks and days sometimes. So I think we do see their changes already.
Just looking at some of the questions that were coming in, do you want to pick? I see that Marcus has been kind enough to put some questions to the room. Yeah. But I know you also have a few other questions, which I think came from before yes, before we lit the fire. So, but I'm also conscious of time. How do you want to play this?
Let's jump on the questions which come in. I mean, or ask as well in the audience, please. If you want to add some more questions, now it's the time. we have an eye on that. Yeah. I mean, there's the question, are there specific opportunities now having emerged? I think we cannot answer that from the market perspective, but opportunities regarding in the organizations, I think you touched upon many of them already, but is there one big opportunity going forward arising from the crisis?
No, I don't have a view on that.
No. I think I like the theme a lot, that what you said about hearing different voices in the organization. That resonated a lot to me, actually, because, I mean, we come up from a tech environment, so we use Slack for many years now, and I see as well the timid characters, sometimes the less heard voices, they become more visible sometimes in a tech-based environment. If they use these kind of tools, they see the opportunity. I think this is really interesting and can have some longer-term effects on the industry. As we said, who performs well, who not. It's maybe a little bit more of an equal playing field or discussion field for many. And that, I assume, has very positive effects on the organizations long-term.
Yep.
So that's definitely big theme for us. Yeah.
I think you've said about, I think we covered a lot of it. You think people get back to the old ways of working? Have things permanently changed? I think you've got to say, well, how would I feel about somebody coming to me now and said, listen, I'd like to work for your company, but I want to do it all from home. I think, I'm not even sure that before Corona that I said, oh, that's not going to work. I've always been quite liberal in if you get the right people, I'll work around them.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that's easier because this is a small shop. Maybe for bigger organizations, it's a trickier pill. But I think they have probably seen the light. So unsurprisingly, you get some of the big fancy tech firms are pretty much now saying, you work as you like. There is no predefined agenda that it has to be within that office or that office. I think that is a change for the better, and it is a change that is permanent. Does that mean that real estate, commercial real estate prices in London is going to go through the floor because we don't need offices anymore? No, I don't believe so, because I think ultimately far the majority of us enjoy working with others, and that's not this. That is so I think there is a need, but it's jolly nice to see that it's doable, and I think there are some positive takeaways from that, and I think for some people the way forward will absolutely be a mix of the two, and at least now there's been a decent test bed. So a company would say, well, what were you like during the last 2-3 months? And that will become our acid test on whether we would like to entertain you continuing working that way. Or my guess is that it will be a happy medium, and then there'll be a whole raft of us who can't wait to get back to normal.
There were, not surprisingly, we got some questions here about recruiting and hiring as well. I mean, I can say for us, we just onboarded 6 new people in our company, and definitely the 2 learnings, I'd say. First, people actually love to change the environment right now. It seems like challenging and not so easy to become part of a new team and all that, but it is exciting in times where others already a little bit in the mood of, every day is the same, basically, no changes ahead. So there are some characters who like to change jobs in this kind of environment, and I think it is possible to get them on board. Everyone is doing going this extra mile, being twice the colleague you said before, in order to help people joining a team and becoming productive. So I have personally a very positive Yeah, takeaway from the last weeks onboarding new colleagues in our team. Can you share? Do you see the same happening in other shops?
I, honestly, the picture is truly binary.
Yeah,
It's either we have organizations that are really large organizations, majors that are effectively saying, well, they're gonna ice everything until the end of the year. All things to do with recruitment, no decision made. We'll push it to the end of the year. Now, undoubtedly, there are lots of other reasons for doing that. I understand that if your core business is taking oil out of the ground, the current situation does mean that your attention is going to be very much on the price of oil, amongst other things. So I get it, but I still think that there are some firms that are on the other end of the scale, are really, credit to them, maintaining pretty much business as usual. Where I've struggled a little bit is that some clients are saying, listen, we want to do the entire process, but listen, we just feel we're really struggling with the idea of making a strategic hire on somebody who we've never actually met in the flesh. And I totally empathize with that, because it goes back to the 80-20 rule. And I'm saying, are we really going to be able to do this entirely virtual? But there are some firms that we have taken on projects from during Corona times, and we've closed them during Corona times. So it absolutely, can be done. And there are some exciting business plans and strategies out there that are contingent on attracting talent. And those firms are staying on course. Yes. But we can't ignore the fact that you make these decisions for these hires, and you don't have the benefit of seeing them in the flesh. It influences decisions, and we've also had individuals who have started their new job as a trader or as a leader during these times, and I have been fascinated by how the onboarding strategy has played out, because that must be really, really tough. We have ourselves. I mean, I have a new guy starting this week, and he is in tech and digital, and he's in the room, Tom. So we've had to embrace this onboarding, and we take it really seriously, and I expect our clients, they take it seriously too. And actually, we're picking up some nuances also on where some of the disconnects can be, in terms of how it feels from the candidate side, how it feels from the onboarding team, and that is because of the 80-20 rule, and saying that there is no substitute for check and balance with an individual face to face, whether it's to decide, Jens, you and I, we're going to work together, and we're going to build a great business, or you sign on the dotted line, you're starting on Monday. Here's all the exciting stuff we're going to do in your first week, your second week, your third week. Here are the people we're going to expose you to. Remove all that and say, oh, Jens, you're starting on Monday. At 9:30, you've got a Zoom with so-and-so. And then we're going to do some collegial drinks at 5 o'clock, and you'll meet everybody. But it will be populated as a mosaic on your screen. So welcome to the team. I think onboarding is exciting to talk about during these times, but only exciting if I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think it's exciting as a new way of working together. Not at all. I don't think it's exciting to sit and share a drink with somebody on a screen. Not for me.
I can only second that. I mean, I think in 5 cases we made now hiring decisions, and I think it was not that difficult to decide for people without seeing them in person. That worked well. I think as well that, let's say, the technical onboarding to getting people on the job can be organized. Takes more time and dedication, but it can be organized. The only thing where I'm saying we will see more in the midterm is how much opportunity we provide actually to our new employees to read our culture. Yeah, the culture of the company is essential. We want to transport something. We want to ensure this kind of fit. Can we transport all this kind of subcontext again to the employees? I think that's really too early to tell. This is more where we see a midterm effect, and this is the only thing which bothers me as someone in a fast-growing company that if I look back now, I think, I don't know, 15, 16 employees have joined since the beginning of the year. Can we still keep this culture intact? Is it still the same culture, actually, which is the common ground for everyone? That's what comes the midterm.
I'm conscious that I was bragging about how good I am around discipline and sticking to an agenda. I've had a WhatsApp from one. We're now 15 minutes overrunning. So for those participants that are left, thank you for staying with us. But I think we should probably bring the chat to a close and
yes.
Maybe do it again some other time.
Exactly. Why not doing it again? It was great to having you. I really enjoyed listening to you and your insights, and I think there's so many anecdotes which you can draw from. I think it's a unique position you have, and I think let's take the opportunity again in the future and share your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hosting, and thank you to everybody who joined us. Yeah, I will see you online some other time.